What's going on, y'all? Pee Wee the Plug, Big Stacks Porzingis, Mr. Know-It-All, #1 Knicks fan in the world. Y'all know all of that by now. Breaking news happened today in the NBA community, NBA Twitter, NBA atmosphere. Kawhi Leonard is requesting a trade from the San Antonio Spurs and is looking to find a way out. And that one is truly breaking news. First of all, as a NBA, I guess, journalist or whatever the title you have it, NBA podcaster, whatever title we fall under from having a podcast. Me as a basketball person, I'll just use that term. I definitely thought Kawhi was coming back. I definitely wanted Kawhi to come back. And one of the main reasons I wanted Kawhi to come back is because seeing what's going on in the NBA right now with the Golden State Warriors, I'm a basketball fan. I prioritize basketball over my favorite players, over my favorite team. I'm a fan of basketball more than I'm a fan of any team or player. Meaning, you know, congrats to Curry, congrats to Clay, congrats to Durant. But you know, these last couple years have not been that much entertaining due to the lopsidedness of the Warriors against everybody else, especially this season with the Cavaliers not having Kyrie Irving anymore, and the trade deadline trades that kind of gave them such a new team so late in the season. So even if it was the Knicks, if my favorite team, which is the Knicks, if we had Durant, Clay, Draymond, Curry, you know, I would be happy that we winning the championships, don't get me wrong, but then I would still have the same feeling like this ain't as entertaining. You know, I prefer entertainment more than anything. So because of that, the basketball fan in me, I'm looking for balance in the NBA. And in my opinion, Kawhi returns back to the San Antonio Spurs with Popovich, with LaMarcus Aldridge, who had an incredible season last year. DeJounte Murray had a great second season, the youngest player ever to make a defensive team. You know, you have that's a good future for them. That's a good basketball team. And then, of course, with the coaching of Popovich and just the organization as itself, they always find a way to win. And you know, with them having a legitimate star in Kawhi, a legitimate co-star, all-star in LaMarcus Aldridge, and then with a youngin, up-and-coming young guy in DeJounte Murray, I feel like you have everything across the board. You have a lead star who plays both sides of the ball. You have your second best player who's an all-star, is a good big man who fits this modern game, and then you have a young defensive-minded emerging point guard in DeJounte Murray with Greg Popovich calling the shots. That's a good team to me. Then in OKC, I was pulling, you know, I'm a Paul George fan, and I was pulling for Paul George to somehow, some way return to OKC, because I just feel like the duo of him and Russ can go so far. You know, him, Russ, Steven Adams. We get to see Carmelo Anthony with his second season being the third option. You know, he's kind of got that under his belt. I keep trying to stress to people how hard it is to go from being the #1 option all your life to now becoming a third option, and just it's much more difficult and hard to adjust to than people think, #1. So I wanted to see that come back and see them do that for a second chance, because I feel like they played as bad as they can that first year. They can play no worse. So this season, it was going to be better by default, because that was as bad as they could play. They can play no bad from there. So anything after that will be an upgrade, and then you get Roberson back, and you get a chance to do some things in the offseason, knowing what's the strengths and weaknesses of your team from last year. So I wanted to see them stay, because now they're a team that has the potential. James Harden, Chris Paul, Clint Capella, the Houston Rockets, they just took the Golden State Warriors to 7 games in the Western Conference Finals. So they have, you know, they have a legitimate team. The Philadelphia 76ers have Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, and you know, Dario Saric, and then Markelle Fultz. We don't know what he could return and be something and be something special. So they have a good team. The Boston Celtics won 7 games with the Cleveland Cavaliers without Kyrie and Gordon Hayward. So they have a solid team. And then, you know, LeBron, if he goes back to the Cavs, they could put together a trade to go get Kemba Walker or CJ McCollum, or, you know, something. So now, and they have Kevin Love, so now they have a good team. And then that creates balance within the NBA. You have the Pelicans, who have Anthony Davis. They could be returning. Boogie could be returning. So now they have 2 all-star. You know what I mean? And that just creates balance. But now we have a situation where Kawhi Leonard is looking for a trade and seeking a trade, and you know, the team that's on his list is, you know, the Lakers, which is, you know, he's from that area. So now when that happens, a shift kind of changes for free agency. So now, you know, we've been hearing a lot of talk for the past week or two about Paul George having interest in returning back to Oklahoma City. I would have to think that that is going to have to change a little bit. I'm not saying that it means everything, but his mind is going to have to change a little bit, because now you have a situation where the Lakers could potentially, if they're able to pull off a trade for Kawhi Leonard, could add Kawhi, LeBron, and Paul George in one offseason. So now next season you can come into a situation with those 3 on your team, which is a scary sight. But what that does is it takes away the balance in the NBA, because now the Spurs, they have, you know, if they put together the trade that makes the most sense would be Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, Luol Deng, and probably some draft picks or something like that. So now the Spurs, they're good. They have good young talent that could potentially develop into something special. But right now, to play against and go against that Golden State Warriors team, you knock them off the list of the teams that could create balance in the NBA. You know what I mean? Paul George leaving OKC, they're now a team you knock off the list when you talk about balance in the NBA. And then the Cleveland Cavaliers, if they lose LeBron James, they're now a team that you knock off the list when you talk about balance in the NBA. Yes, the Lakers are a team that you add into the mix, but in order to add the Lakers to the mix, you're now eliminating 3 teams, which makes the NBA even less balanced than what it was originally. Because now you have the Warriors, the Lakers will be good, the Celtics will be good, the Rockets will be good. And I mean, pretty much that would pretty much be it. You know what I mean? Russell Westbrook will probably lead the OKC Thunder back to the playoffs, but nothing substantial would happen. You know, the Jazz have a pretty good team with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, but I don't see them being able to handle or compete with any of those top teams that I named. The Spurs will have a bright future with Ingram, Kuzma, DeJounte Murray, and LaMarcus Aldridge will probably come back with another good year. But they can't compete with those teams. And then in the East, you know, the Celtics would kind of run away with the East. You may, you know, you maybe get some competition from, you know, hell, I don't know. I'm not sure what will happen in the East. You know, maybe, you know, the Raptors will be back in the mix. You know, maybe the Wizards come back healthy and are competitive. The East would just be very, very weak at that point, a lot more weaker than we've ever seen. And so, again, that just hurts the balance. And then another thing to look into it is a lot of people talking about the Lakers, but what a lot of people have to take into consideration is the fact that it's not a done deal. You know what I mean? He's being traded, so it's not up to him. It's not like he's a free agent and he's picking his team. It's kind of like the Kyrie situation last year. Kyrie ended up being on the Celtics, which was not a team that he had on his list of teams that he had wanted to be traded to when he talked to the Cavaliers. You know, if y'all remember his list, it was like the Knicks, the Spurs, the Timberwolves. The Celtics weren't on that list, but he still got traded to the Celtics. Same thing with Kawhi. Kawhi can tell the Spurs, you know, how badly and how much he wants to play for the Lakers, how much he likes them. But if they don't want to trade him to the Lakers, they don't have to trade him to the Lakers. If they want to, they could trade him to the Kings. You know what I mean? And it's very hard for me to imagine the Spurs trading Kawhi Leonard to a team in the Western Conference. The only how I can see that only if the other packages that they got from the other teams trying to acquire Kawhi, if those trade packages don't live up to anything that the Lakers are offering, then of course the Lakers have the upper hand. But if there's a team that could give you something as good as the Lakers, then the Spurs might go that route to send Kawhi to the Eastern Conference. You know, I don't think the Spurs are the type of organization that's going to be willing to trade their best player, a top tier player, to a team in their conference and a team like the Lakers, who they've had history and kind of a rivalry with over the last 15 to 20 years. I just don't see that unless they have no other option. But there's definitely going to be other teams in play, which is something that I think everybody needs to take into consideration, because everybody's seen that Lakers name, and they kind of made it seem like the Lakers are the only team that's in play to get him. You definitely have to look at my Knicks, because Kawhi's been spending a lot of time in the New York area. His uncle's from New York, which is why he's been seeing doctors and everything in New York during his whole rehab situation. The Boston Celtics are always in the conversation to acquire an all-star or a star, because they have so much to give as far as trade assets and trade picks. So they're always in the conversation. And then there's going to be a team in the next couple days or somewhat in this week that'll come out that will surprise us. You know what I'm saying? There's going to be some team, I'm pretty sure, that's always it's always a team that comes out of nowhere and you'd be like, oh wow, like yeah, they actually do have a chance to get him. You know what I mean? Like with Kyrie, a team that kind of came out of nowhere to acquire Kyrie last year was the Suns. You know, the Suns was a real talk about Kyrie going there, and it was like, you know what, the Suns kind of, when you look at it, they do have some things to offer. They got some draft picks, they have some young talent, you know, like TJ Warren, Marquise Chris. You know, I don't know how much people value them, but you know, there's some potential there. Plus the draft, even like now they have the #1 pick, they have TJ Warren. So like if the Spurs, you know, depending on what the Spurs want to do, you could trade Kawhi to the Suns, and you can get a TJ Warren back, who's not Kawhi, but he's a solid 3. You can get back the #1 pick, who would be DeAndre Ayton, who kind of, you know, his physique and his build kind of reminds you of a David Robinson, you know, which might intrigue them. And you can go get a, you know, a #1 pick, a big man that could, you know, you could potentially build around, and you can go that route. You know what I'm saying? And you might could get some couple other guys, like a Marquise Chris or anything that's intriguing to the Spurs that's on that Phoenix Suns roster. I'm just throwing that out there. So it's always a team like that. So I'm just trying to point out that the Lakers aren't the clear-cut team that's going to get him. You know? And then lastly, my last point is for the Lakers fans. Is Kawhi a guy? Do you want Kawhi? You know, every team in the NBA wants Kawhi. I know that for a fact, but what I mean is, you know, there's a chance this offseason that you can get Paul George and LeBron James without giving up anything. So that means you can keep Lonzo, you can keep Ingram, you can keep Kuzma, you can keep your draft picks, and still can get LeBron and Paul George. So, for example, let's hypothetically speaking, let's say that the Lakers get Paul George and LeBron, but they don't get Kawhi. So now you're looking at a lineup of Lonzo Ball, Paul George, Brandon Ingram, LeBron James, Kyle Kuzma. That might not be their starting lineup for all 82 games, but I can guarantee you that that will be the lineup that plays against the Golden State Warriors. Lonzo, Curry, Paul George, Clay, Iguodala, Ingram, LeBron, KD, Draymond, Kuzma. That matches perfectly, right? And I'm just naming by position. I'm not saying who's going to guard who, because obviously LeBron James in his 16th career is not going to probably be chasing around Durant. Paul George will probably guard Durant, and they would probably try to put LeBron on like a Iguodala, and then Brandon Ingram would probably have to guard Klay Thompson. So I'm just going off position. Point guard, Lonzo and Curry. Shooting guard, Klay and Paul George. Small forward, Ingram, Iguodala. Power forward, Kevin Durant, LeBron. Center, Kuzma, Draymond. Matches up perfectly. Or if you were to trade Kuzma, Ingram, Luol Deng, and some draft picks, maybe you even throw Josh Hart in there to get Kawhi. Don't get me wrong, you do have that 3-headed monster. You have Lonzo, Paul George, Kawhi, LeBron. I don't know who the center would be, or who, you know, I don't know what their money's gonna be like after acquiring all 3 of those guys. But those 4 right there versus, you know, Steph, Klay, Iggy, Durant, and Draymond. You know what I mean? this is a very intriguing four because, you know, Lonzo is a guy who shot the ball bad last year. I understand that, but he still gave you 10-7-7 as a rookie point guard and played exceptionally well on the defensive end. And he's a big point guard, so you know he's a guy that's going to be able to guard Curry. You can ask him to guard Curry and give him that responsibility. Paul George, Kawhi, they could guard KD and take turns on him. So KD will be seeing two premier perimeter defenders for a lot of the game. And if Lonzo was having trouble with Curry, you know, because Curry is a two-time MVP, he's a three-time champion. I'm not going to say like Lonzo can just lock him down. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying KD will be locked up by any of those guys because you're never going to lock those guys up. I'm just saying playing some type of defense on them. But even if, you know, Curry was becoming too much to handle for Lonzo, when you have Kawhi and Paul George on the perimeter, that's nothing. Okay, Lonzo is having a hard time. Kawhi, now you guard Steph. Paul George, now you guard Steph. You know what I mean? You could just throw Lonzo on Klay because Klay is not a guy who's going to be making the shot. You know what I mean? Klay is just a guy you have to stay with. You fight through screens. Then they have such a versatile lineup that you could switch a lot. That would be very intriguing, depending on who would be their starting center with their cap and their money. But me personally, I like the Kawhi, Paul George, and LeBron because, you know, I mean, it's just those are three of the best wings in the game, you know, and they're going to be going up against Kevin Durant, which is another best wing, one of the top wings in the game. Collectively, they'll be going up against each other. But I also really like the fact that you can keep your youth while still inheriting win-now players like LeBron and Paul George. So if you get a team like that has Lonzo, Paul George, Ingram, LeBron, and Kuzma, and you still have Josh Hart off the bench. Yes, you don't have Kawhi, who is still 26. He's young. But you are in a situation where you have your young prospects, Kuzma, Ingram, and Lonzo, while having LeBron and Paul George. So it's like you're a contender in win-now mode, but you still have young prospects as well. I feel like that mixture right there gives you a chance to dominate the NBA for the next 10 years versus dominating the NBA for the next 4 years, if that makes any sense. Because you have LeBron James and Paul George, two premier players. Obviously, LeBron is the #1 player in the game. Paul George is, you know, depending on who you ask, is a top 10, top 15 player in the game. So you pair them with guys who are coming into their second, third, fourth seasons. They're still developing. All of those guys, Lonzo, Ingram, Kuzma, have all-star potential, but are years away from reaching that potential. Playing with Paul George and LeBron will definitely speed up that process because they'll get playoff experience and everything real early under their belts, and definitely that'll make them better players. But when LeBron is done and Paul George is a little bit older than what he is now, he's kind of slowed down, he's not the same anymore, that doesn't mean that you have to rebuild and start your team all the way over all of a sudden. Because you still gonna have, you know, because by the time that LeBron is done and Paul George is falling back and declining, Lonzo, Ingram, and Kuzma are now entering their primes. You know what I'm saying? So now you still have, so now your dominance or you being a good team doesn't fall off the face of the earth. You know what I'm saying? Because like now, when LeBron leaves the Cavs, they're done. They have to start all the way over. You know what I'm saying? And now when you do that for the Lakers, when LeBron leaves and when Paul George is not, you know, the same Paul George that we're used to seeing, you don't have to start all the way over. It's not a rebuilding situation. You're just gonna have to replace those two guys, you know, with whoever you can get in the free agency market or whoever's available at that time during the NBA, which of course I can't tell the future. But when LeBron leaves and he goes off your books, you know, you're going to have 3 young guys who are probably going to be at the all-star level in their career. They'll probably be all-stars by then. And then when LeBron is off the books, that opens up the cap for another max player. Maybe, because then again, Lonzo, Ingram, and Kuzma, they might be on their way to being max players by then. But LeBron off your books will definitely open up some cap space for you to go and be able to replace him for a solid guy. Because with Kuzma, Lonzo, and Ingram, when they become all-stars, you won't need a LeBron top 5 player to be on your team then. You could go out and maybe get, you know, a solid starter, all-star player to plug in with them. Or if there's some emerging big man all of a sudden, LeBron and Paul George are off of y'all team, and this is your three-headed monster now. You go and you put a center around that team, and y'all will be good. But that's just my thing. You know what I mean? I think that's just a great luxury to have when we talk about having the chance to win now, but also having youth and young prospects that could develop while you're winning now. And then once your win now players are older and retiring and they're declining, those 3 young guys and those young prospects, they're just not entering their prime. So there's no fall off for your organization or your franchise, and that's, to me, is beautiful. And that's where the decisions get hard, because I know first thought Kawhi, LeBron, Paul George is very intriguing, it's very beautiful, but when you take all of those other things into consideration, it becomes a real question. You know, me, I go in either or, no doubt about it. I'm a Lonzo Ball fan. I'm saying to myself, this is great news for Lonzo. You know, LeVar, I'm a big fan of the Big Baller brand and the whole Ball family, but I think LeVar gotta let this happen. He gotta chill. I know Jello is coming to the NBA. LaMelo's a couple years away. He's been saying stuff on ESPN about if all of the boys can't play together, Lonzo gonna, you know, have to look to play elsewhere. We're gonna have to chill on all that, because if Lonzo has the chance to play with LeBron, Kawhi, and Paul George for the next 4 years or 3+ years, he's gonna have a chance to do some shit to put him in an upper echelon talk of point guards. If he just contributes, and Lonzo is not a scorer. He's not a guy who's gonna come out and average 30 points, anything like that. But if he does that little 10-7-7 and he can continue to progress and move those numbers up, if Lonzo just with those guys, if Lonzo can be like a 14-8-8, or if he's a 14-8-9 type of guy with those other guys around him, and he's winning rings, oh, Lonzo is gonna be, yeah, he's gonna solidify himself early in his career as you know, all time. This is a chance that Lonzo, if he can play with those guys and take advantage and play his role with Kawhi, Paul George, LeBron, and they can win rings, and he can play a significant part as the starting point guard and put up, if those 10-7-7s can increase and move up how I think they will, because I think he's going to shoot better and he's going to just have a better feel for the overall NBA game, he's going to be, you know, he's going to be putting himself in that legendary list of point guards that this team can dominate and win, how I would imagine them to, because I think this team could beat Golden State. LeBron James alone, with Kevin Love, I won't say alone, with Kevin Love, played some great games against the Warriors. Some of those games, when you look at the box score, it looks like they had no chance. It looks like a blowout. But the first 3 games, besides that last game, they played the hell out of the Warriors for them to not have what they have. LeBron James took George Hill and J.R. Smith to the finals. And in game 1, had a 51-point performance where they were 1 free throw away or a timeout away from potentially going up 1-0 on the Warriors. Game 2, after the heartbreaking game 1 loss where George Hill missed the free throw, JR pulled the ball out, Tyronn Lue didn't call a timeout even though he saw JR running away from the basket. After all of that, they came out game 2, they played them good for the first 4 quarters. That last half of the game, or last 4th quarter, you know, they you know, it was too much to handle. And they threw in a flag and the Warriors took it away. But they played them great. They played them great that second game. And I thought that second game was going to be a blowout, but the Cavs fought. And up to that middle part of the 4th quarter, it was still some hope. It was still like a 7-point game. Then it would go down to a 4-point game. Then LeBron would come down and he'd find Jeff Green in the corner for a 3, and Jeff Green would miss, and the Warriors would come down and they would hit a 3. So now the 4-point game goes to 7, and the crowd's rocking, and the Warriors got momentum. Now they put the lead back to 11, and then LeBron does a couple moves and comes down and scores a couple times in a row. Now it's back down to 5, and now LeBron just needs somebody else to just hit 1 shot, and they can't do it for him. And now the Warriors come back down and hit another 3, and then Steph comes down, he hits another 3, and now it's back to 11. And by that time, the Cavs are throwing the towel. game's over. Once they put Jordan Clarkson, Rodney Hood, and Cedi Osman in the game, the Warriors run off with the game, and it looks like a blowout. But they played them great the whole game. Same thing with game 3. You know, they played them great for the whole entire game. Kevin Durant comes down, hit that 3 in the same spot, rips their heart out of the chest, and then it's over. And then, of course, game 4, the Cavs just folded, and it was it. But again, LeBron James single-handedly kind of kept them in a competitive fight against the Warriors, and he just needed just this much of help. And if you give him Kawhi and Paul George, seeing what he did with George Hill and J.R. Smith, makes me think that it's a realistic chance that they will be able to beat and compete with the Warriors at a high level. And then, like I said, if Lonzo can contribute and, you know, do what he does, because he's a big point guard, he's a smart player, he doesn't need to score, he's going to make everyone around him better. He's, you know, was very surprisingly very good defensively. That could be a scary team. And y'all thought LeVar was bad now? Y'all let Lonzo win a championship in his 2nd or 3rd year, and Lonzo actually contributes and is part of the reason that they do. Oh man, oh man, y'all gonna really hate LeVar then. I guarantee it. I'm a Lonzo fan. I hope it happens, because man, the dude can hoop. I love the way he plays, and I think if he can win some rings early in his career and get that off his shoulders, and just get that weight off of him to just know he has rings, he's never got to go and team up and go chase anything. And also, another thing to pay attention to, if the Lakers put this team together and they win some championships in the next couple years, and they win like multiple, and LeBron, you know, LeBron retires as a Laker, and, you know, Paul George ends with the Lakers, a thing like that, the Lakers might go out and reward Lonzo and go get him Melo and Jello. You know, because Melo ain't going to be in the league until like another 3 years or so. So, you know, that gives them time to win some championships and play with LeBron and use him for the next couple years. And then once that kind of fades out and the Lakers, you know, it's time for LeBron to hang it up, you know, the Lakers might go out and get Jello and Melo and let LeVar live that dream of all of them being on the same team. And then, you know, it looks like a genius. So it's a lot that goes into this. This is only the start to NBA free agency. Thank you for watching. I know it's a lot of Spurs fans out there that are fans of me. You know, don't worry. The Spurs are a A1 organization. They're not going to mess this up. They're not like a Sacramento Kings type situation or organization where they're going to somehow fumble this. The Spurs are going to take their time. They're going to do what's necessary for them. They're not going to, you know, if they don't have to trade Kawhi to the Lakers, they're definitely not going to do it. Trust and believe me. And they're going to find a way to win out of this deal. You're never going to win by losing a player of Kawhi's caliber. But one thing is for sure, we haven't seen Kawhi play in like a year. We've seen those 9 games, so he could have a realistic injury. And that's a risk that whatever team gets him is going to take. But the Spurs will find something to gain or something to be positive about from this situation. They always do. If you're a Lakers fan or you're a fan of a team that could potentially get him, let me know what y'all think. Would y'all trade y'all youth for Kawhi after not seeing him play? How do y'all feel about the Lakers with Kawhi versus the Lakers just getting Paul George and LeBron and keeping their youth? If you're a Lakers fan, how you feel about that? Do you think that Lakers team could compete with Golden State? Let me know. Leave a like if you're new, subscribe. Big Stacks out.
Porzingis again! That brought the crowd to their feet.